just wait for everybody to get settled down for a moment. We need to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Okay, so a little bit of a change in people here this evening. As you can see, we're a little lightly attended. Trustee Scott is on vacation. Trustee Cooper was here, but he just went home sick. All of a sudden, he just got really sick, and so he headed on home. And Chris Koska, our assistant superintendent, is filling in for our superintendent this evening. So thank you for doing that. So a little bit changed, but we're still going to keep moving forward. We have enough people here to hold our meeting. We have a quorum, and so we'll keep plugging along here. All right, closed session announcements, and Trustee Nell will be our acting vice president this evening. So if Trustee Nell could do the report out, I'd appreciate that.
With regards to the closed session discussion items, item B, was a conference with our negotiator having to do with labor negotiations between our classified and our Novato Federation of Teachers. We gave a direction to staff for that. Item C was in reference to labor negotiations. This is with our CSEA labor unit, the classified staff, and information was provided on that alone. And item D, which had to do with real estate property negotiations with regard to Hamilton Parcel 1B on C Street. And we gave a direction to staff with regard to that. And that is the announcements of our closed session.
Okay, thank you. Approval of our agenda. So the agenda stands as is.
Yep.
Move the order of business.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Millerick is a first, second?
Second.
Okay, Trustee Aguila is a second to approve the agenda. All in favor? Okay, 5-0 to absent. And public comment, if anybody is interested in making a comment, either not on the agenda or on the agenda, please fill out a blue card. I have a few right here that's up here on this cart. And bring it up to Sally, and they'll hand it over to me, and we'll make sure you are able to speak before an item. You have 3 minutes to speak. We have the timer right there. It's nice and big, and if you go over the 3 minutes, I'll just ask you to wrap it up, and if you could conclude your comments so that we stick to the 3 minutes, I'd appreciate that. All right, in regards to consent agenda, we do have 2 things at your table, board members. You have just a couple changes on 2 items, item G, 14G, and 14L. They're just very minor changes. The 14G is the Latino Hispanic Heritage Month resolution. There was just some verbiage that needed to just be changed that we had done last year when we approved this resolution. So we wanted to make sure we stick to that. And the one thing that got changed on item 14L, which is the advisory committee representation, was Novato High. We changed the principal. So, okay, so those are the 2 items. And
I understand you're pulling 14R.
14R is being pulled by staff, and that will come back. Is that coming back from what I hear? Is that, okay.
I don't
Not as a discussion action, coming back at a future board meeting, or?
board meeting.
Okay,
It was some uncertainty, so
okay.
I don't think we.
And just to clarify why I'm questioning that, because I did not state, but in closed session, we did discuss item D, which is the North Bay Children's Center. I had recused myself from that item in regards to where I live from that facility, so. We won't be discussing it'll completely pulled for a future board meeting. Okay, so that leaves the consent.
So were you happy with the revised language with G? Is there any reason we move item G and item?
Yes, yeah. Everything looks good to me, yeah.
So I will make a motion to move the consent agenda, including all items G and L, and excluding item R, which has been pulled by staff, and we'll consider it in the future.
Perfect.
A second.
Okay, so we have first by Trustee Miller, a second by Trustee Aguila. All in favor to approve the consent agenda with those addendums Okay, 5 with 2 absent. All right, our student presentation this evening is Lou Sutton. And we're happy to have them here. So we have Principal Mrs. Dudley's here this evening.
Okay. Hello, I am River. We are the conflict managers from New Sutton School. First, I'd like to talk about what a conflict manager is. A conflict manager is a person who, manages conflicts, also known as a yard duty for the little kids. Now, Sakura will tell you more.
Tonight, the Lusetton conflict managers are here to talk about the 6th season conflict managers. Enjoy. Hello, my name is Parker Wheatley. As a conflict manager, I have developed as a communicator by listening and talking loud and clear. An example is when 3 kids were arguing because one of them only wanted to play with one of her friends. I told her that they both wanted to play with her, so make it fair and play with both. We solved the problem.
Hi, my name is Kira, and as a conflict manager, I have developed as a critical thinker by using what I already know to come up with many solutions. An example was when I saw 2 little boys having an argument. I walked over and addressed the situation. First, I asked both sides of the story, then I worked with each of them to come up with a solution. In conclusion, critical thinking is included because both of the boys figured out what they could do to make things better next time. Again, my name is Kira, and thank you.
Hello, my name is Joseph. As a conflict manager, I have learned how to be a collaborator by working at shifting as well as caring for other conflict managers. While they are able to do their shifting, this is how I help my team to be successful.
Hi, my name is Nick, and I'm going to be talking to you about being a collaborator. When I'm a conflict manager, I contribute to the success of our team by working with the 1st and 2nd graders during lunch. I work with the yard duty supervisors, Ms. Vani and Ms. Rogers, to help keep the kids safe.
Hi, I'm Isabella, and I'm going to tell you about a conscientious learner just like me, and I try my best to get to conflict manager on time. Sometimes I might even get there early. And another thing a conscientious learner does is set goals for a conscientious growth. Like I try to help the kids set a goal of not running is not by asking why running is not safe.
Hi, my name is Stella. As a conflict manager, I have developed a culturally competent student by seeking and considering multiple perspectives. An example was when 2 first graders were disagreeing with each other's idea. I helped them talk about it and we solved the problem.
Hi, my name is Race. As a conflict manager, I have developed by character responsibility. For example, when I was in 4th grade, can I reset that? Sorry. Hi, my name is Race. As a conflict manager, I have developed by character, by responsibility. For example, when I help my fellow conflict manager to tell him the time when he needs to go.
Hi, my name is Stephanie, and I'm a Lusetton conflict manager. And now everybody has told you about the 6 C's. Do you want to know? By now, every conflict manager has mastered the 6 C's. It's true. Knock, knock. A conflict manager. To solve a problem. I hope you enjoyed this conflict manager presentation and have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for giving them their much-deserved attention. They are 10 of 30 conflict managers that we have at our school site, and they really are an integral part of our recess experience. Our yard supervisors really rely on them. They do such a great job, and they are really dedicated to what they do, and they believe in the power of it. I'm so proud of all of you, not only for being a conflict manager, but for getting up here and being so brave. So proud of you for all that you are working on this year. And also, they couldn't do it without the help of our yard supervisors who help lead their work. They do training with them. They meet with them. They're constantly checking in with them, giving them tips. Our yard supervisors, Miss Laura, who I'm not going to embarrass too much, but she's amazing, and Miss Kathy. So if you guys can just let us know who you are. You guys are amazing, and we couldn't do it without you. So thank you, everybody.
Great job. You do a very important job, and so I commend you for taking that lead at your school, all of you. It is important, and you keep everything running smoothly on the playground along with your yard supervisors, which is a position that we hardly recognize. So I just wanted to thank you, the yard supervisors, very much. We know how much it takes to be out there on the playground. I don't know how you do it every day with your little pack of your Band-Aids and everything else that you have to carry. We know that it's an important job, so know that it doesn't go unnoticed, but we just don't recognize you enough. So thank you for doing what you do. So why don't you come up? Your parents want to see a picture of you here, so come up here in front, and anybody can take a picture. Maybe do 2 rows if you can, but maybe not. Just wait for everybody to clear out for a little bit, and we'll continue on to our announcements. Quick, leave while you can. All right, we'll move on to our announcements. McKenna, hi.
Hello. Okay. So, at Novato High School this week, we are preparing for homecoming. This is our Spirit Week. So, we have our parade this Friday, the 19th at 7 p.m. on Grant Avenue. And our homecoming game is on Saturday, JV at 11:30, varsity at 2 o'clock p.m. And at halftime, the Queen and King will be announced. And then also Saturday is our homecoming dance at 7 o'clock. We're doing a Halloween costume contest at the end of the month on Halloween. And next Friday, the 26th of October, is MSA's Big Band Dance at Novato High School. And our fall sports are wrapping up. Next week is our last fall sport game week. That's all.
All right, so at Samrin, this Friday we have our Powder Puff game. It is at 7 on the softball field. And at halftime, we plan on doing a raffle. So we're probably going to raffle off a spirit bag or like a spirit pack. And 25% of the proceeds from the spirit pack or from the proceeds from the raffle will go to a Bay Area-based breast cancer organization. And then we have Mr. Mustang, November 28th. On our Dine and Donate at Italian Delight, October 23rd and 24th is coming up against Novato. We are hosting an 8th grade parent night tomorrow at 5:30 in the gym. Our next tutorial days are October 23rd and October 24th. And the construction of the lights has continued on, and we have opened up the back parking lot, kind of like a dirt lot, since they have to block off some parking for now in the front lot. And we just received our rally merchandise, and that's currently in the process of being distributed out to the students. And our journalism class just came out with their first Pony Express paper. And so
Can we get a copy of that? Like, is it in the office, I'm assuming?
yeah.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
we want to stop by. That's a good, you guys do a great job with that. Yeah. Trustee Millerick?
2 items. As I did 2 weeks ago, this last week I toured 3 more campuses looking at how our technology program is doing. I had the opportunity to tour San Marin and visited probably 5 classrooms on that campus, and also toured Sinaloa. And the question is, are we actually using technology in the way that we hear? And the answer is yes. Jen Larson has been kind and escorted me the whole way, making sure that I had a chance to meet each and every principal, and we got properly introduced to the teachers as we walked into their classroom. San Marin has a program called an ambassadors program. So when you walk into a classroom, a student is obligated, usually 2 students, to stand up and introduce you to the classroom and introduce what's going on and formally greet you, which I thought was an interesting exercise in civics and civility. It was consistent across all the classrooms, which is very interesting. In terms of the technology, there's it's being used everywhere. The Chromebooks are being deployed. The issues that got raised was the Chromebooks are not available to the 8th graders yet, and there's classes, 8th grade classes, that would choose to be teaching the 9th grade curriculum in mathematics, but because they don't yet have the Chromebooks, because they're not due out for next year, they're not able to move forward. So right now, the bottleneck in terms of delivery is our technology funding program and making sure that that's available. That was pretty interesting. The teachers want more, not less. They're embracing the opportunity. All of that traffic, of course, goes up to Google Docs, so our network is being taxed. And there were some signs of some issues that I took back to Tim and he's dealing with to make sure we're addressing them. But there are, every time we add new load and teachers use the technology more powerfully, and the students are building YouTube videos and then telecasting them, the load is being added to the network. But the bottleneck is not the teachers. They're thrilled. And that was exciting, as are the students. On a walk-in, the students would, if the class was just sitting down, within the first 5 minutes, the teacher would make some announcements, and they'd say, open up your Chromebooks, and they would go about doing some administrative work, and every child knew exactly how to do that, and within like 2 minutes, they were all ready to go and get their work done. So clearly this was a practiced, experienced exercise. It wasn't something they did just for me walking in. They knew exactly how to deliver, get themselves ready for learning for that classroom. So I was quite impressed with our faculty, actually.
That's
And
great
Jen
feedback
Larson,
for us.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, she, oh, okay. Thank you.
You for doing that.
Yeah.
And that's great information for this
Hopefully
board
that's
to
useful
hear
yeah.
your insight. So it's important. Trustee Aguila?
Yes, on Thursday, the 4th, I attended the Golden Bell Committee. We are starting to prepare for our celebration, to celebrate our wonderful teachers. And this will be, again, in June. But we're already starting to plan. The second thing is I attended a big celebration this Saturday. It was for Althea Jones. It's a woman that lives in Novato, and even the mayor was invited. She turned 100 years old, and a wonderful lady, very kind, and she lives by herself, and she walks. She has a walker, but she lives by herself. She does everything on her own. Her parents, her kids say, "Well, let's get you some help, Mom." And she says, "No, I need to do stuff on my own, you know." And it's a wonderful thing. She doesn't smoke, she doesn't drink, and wonderful lady. And so very proud to have her living here in Novato, and I think that we should all strive to live like that.
Trustee Mack?
Just one thing. Trustee Nell and I attended the STEM open house, the Rube Goldberg event. It's pretty fun. I get to see all these contraptions and, about a 50% success rate in them working, but usually they would make them work the second time around. But it was an eye-opener. It was great to see our STEM program, especially these are all freshmen. So these are guys that are reciting all kinds of stats, and I was pretty impressed with the minimum requirements needed to do their presentation. There were some physics types of things that I was not really up to speed on. But yeah, anyway, enjoyed it.
Trustee Nell.
A couple things. Trustee Mack mentioned the Rube Goldberg event, and I often like to use that as an analogy for life, how things are built like a Rube Goldberg contraption. So, but from an announcement perspective, I attended the Joint Legislative Advisory Committee meeting where we discussed 76 past and pending legislation bills that were passed, vetoed, and some of the interesting rider language, which is things that are written into law in the dark of the night in committee that come out after the fact. So I will we'll send you this report as it comes out, but also wanted to let you know we've scheduled our trip to Sacramento for January 23rd, and we're discussing our priorities again. Something I'll send to the board, but we would like to hear from as many trustees as possible on what our priorities should be. Last year, our priorities were pension liabilities and school funding, special education, and the need for doing things differently, I will say. The sale of school construction bonds. We passed a statewide construction bond for K through 14, and Governor Brown did not sell very many of them, which is limiting the availability to our schools and our ability to invest in our facilities. So we're asking them to step up the sale of those bonds. And finally, charter school transparency, which primarily has to do with putting both public education and charter schools on the same playing field, I suppose. It appears that there's a lot of rules that are different when it comes to being transparent with the public. So I think much of the coming year's legislation around charter schools is going to be around transparency and correcting some of the inequities that have to do with what we do and what they do. I also wanted to thank Heather Smith, who attended the meeting with us. She is the parent representative for the North Marin Council PTA, and it was a pleasure to have her there representing our school district as well. Oh, one more thing. Our cadets, junior ROTC, is going to be instrumental in helping to put on the Veterans Day celebrations this year on November 11th. Veterans Day is essentially 100 years old this coming year, so we have quite a few things planned, and we just wanted to get the word out. It would be good to see as many people there at the Marin Civic Center honoring our veterans. So those are my announcements. Thanks.
Great. I think we all got an invitation for that, so maybe some of us hopefully can go. I'm going to try to go as well. So, okay, good. And then I attended the Joint Legislative Action Committee meeting as well. And just to add that, I know several bills got vetoed by the governor, and they're going to circle back around because there'll be a new governor here, and so they'll be reintroduced most likely on some of these bills that have been vetoed. So, yeah. 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 Right. I as well attended the Rube Goldberg night as well. I didn't see you, Trustee Mack, but I did run into Trustee Nell. And it's always a fun night to see if they can get them to work or not, and all the what goes into making those, and it being a 9th grade project. I also attended the MSA Divine Wine and Food Extravaganza, it's called. That was on Saturday night. And that's sponsored by the Academy of Arts University, and it was a great night, and it's one of their fundraisers, and it was well attended. I also did the Safe Routes to School meeting a week or so ago, and one of the topics, there was a few topics, but I'd mentioned here before about the Linwood Crosswalk. It's temporary, but they are looking at obviously making that permanent, looking at the spring or summer. The Linwood Crosswalk on Leafwood Drive is what I'm referring to. So they're hoping to get that up and running, and the city attends all those Safe Routes to School meetings, and they're a great asset to that meeting. They have a lot of projects going on, and so they're trying to make it all work. We talked about Merritt Drive, which is across from San Jose Middle School, which continues to be an issue. So I just say, if you are a parent and you are parking on Merritt Drive, you are turning around on Merritt Drive, just stay away from Merritt Drive. These are these people's houses where they live this is where they go in and out, and we are blocking their driveways, we are parking in the red zones, and that's not fair to them. You would not want that in your neighborhood. So if you're listening and you park there, I would please try to avoid that and take the long way instead of trying to make a shortcut out of it. So the other conversation was Vineyard Road, which is Sinaloa is on Vineyard Road, and they are going to be paving that in the summer, I believe it was. Paving in the spring of 2019, so that'll be repaved. I think it's supposed to have a bike path, yes. The bids are coming in a little bit higher, just like everything else, so they had to make some adjustments, but it should be done in the spring at some point. So, and that's it for me. Do you have anything else? Do you want to add anything? Dr. Koska?
Dr. Koska, yeah, thank you. So, had a lot of opportunities to have formal and informal conversations with staff about how the year's gone. A lot of great stuff happening at the schools, and some challenges, different challenges at different levels. We always like to, celebrate our successes and learn a little bit from some of our shortcomings, so we're working on that. Want to give a shout out to the I&I team upstairs. Did a lot of good work through the federal program monitoring. Everybody loves a giant audit when people come in and pick apart your organization, and the way that they reacted and were responsive to the auditors, and just it was just phenomenal to see that new team come together so strongly. So thank you for that. And just a great job with teachers participating in the professional development day on Friday and all the planning that went into that. So we've gotten really good feedback, and again, some feedback that we'll learn from and continue to improve. So thank you.
I'm going to add that there's two things. Well, I'm going to add two announcements, two meetings that are being held this week. The one is a special education parent meeting that's being held here at 6 o'clock this Thursday. So if you're a special education parent, or you're not, you're more than welcome to attend that. And at the Marin County Office of Education, there's a meeting at 6:30 also on Thursday. It's regard to it's vaping. The topic is vaping, and it's a parent education night. So if you want to learn more about that, what to look for and things like that, that's down at the County Office of Education. All right, let's continue on with our meeting here. I have non-agenda public comment. I do have 3 cards, and I'll just call off the 3 names, and we'll just go in that order. So I have Vanessa Coleman, Sue Spry, and Karen Freemantle. You could just come up to the podium, and we'll start the timer and go from there.
Hi, my name's Vanessa Coleman. I'm a 5th grade teacher at Rancho, and I have been a teacher for 16 years. The first 12 years of my career were spent teaching in the Vallejo City Schools. I love what I do and take great pride in it. I do not shy away from hard work, and I'm currently constantly striving to improve my craft. Over the past 3 years as a classroom teacher in NUSD, I have been asked to create science curriculum, create project-based learning units, join committees, learn a new writing program, reading program, attend and participate in an overwhelmingly extensive ELD program, and participate in the P3 grant, all while making connections, building relationships, and reaching 26 to 30 students a year. Every year, hoping the sinking feeling of not meeting my professional goals will lift, only to be asked to do yet another thing. Never once have we as educators in elementary school been shown a feasible plan of how all these things fit in our 6.5-hour day, let alone how one goes about becoming an expert at all of them at once. I find value in all these things, and I understand why they are important, but in an effort to do all of them, we aren't doing any of them well. As a veteran teacher, I feel a sense of overwhelming failure that I haven't felt since year 1 at 22 years of age. And for the first time ever, I have had to turn down training opportunities just so that I can keep my head above water. This year alone, I have been pulled out of my classroom already 6.5 days. At this rate, by the end of the school year, I will have missed 20% of the year in my classroom with my students. The single most important thing I will do this year to help my students is build a relationship with them. This task is impossible to do if I'm not there. I need to know as a professional what our priorities are as a district and where my focus should be. I will continue to prove as an educator every year and will give my all to my students. But for now, I'm at capacity and wanted to share with all of you a plea to please allow us to get better at what we're doing before adding more to our plates. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Sue Spry. I'm also a teacher at Rancho. I'm here to try to give a perspective of one teacher, that being me. I'm now in my 19th year of being a paid teacher, having started my adult life working in a microbiology lab and then being a stay-at-home mom. I love teaching. I see teaching young children as a privilege. My job brings a lot of joy and satisfaction, but also frustration and challenges. Anyone who has spent any time with children knows that challenges are an everyday part of that life. Those challenges can be invigorating and inspiring, as well as exhausting and discouraging, but they are what keeps me going and on my toes. What doesn't have to be a major part of each day, though, are the unnecessary frustrations that seem to be a part of my current job. Some of the frustrations are feeling as though, despite the talk of work-life balance, I'm regularly expected to do more than can possibly fit into even a very extended workday. Students may leave at 3, but very few teachers do, and when they do leave, they often take work home with them. It seems we get more tasks every year, and even minor tasks take time. And sometimes it's hard to understand some of those tasks. For several years, we've been asked to complete student report cards online, and yet I cannot access the reports of my current students from prior years. I spend time trying to provide my students with activities that help them understand their connection to the world in which they live. They participate in the coastal cleanup by cleaning the creek behind the school and the school grounds at different times during the year. They raise rainbow trout in the classroom. They get to work on wetland restorations. They decorate a ferry as a community service project and many other things. But despite our generous PTA, I spend a significant amount of my own money making many of those learning experiences a reality. Speaking of the PTA, the Williams Act ensures that students get their books, but the PTA pays for everything else. We do not get those kinds of supplies through the district, and that's very frustrating. Another issue is the number of times teachers are pulled from the classroom for district-mandated activities, particularly at the beginning of the school year. The beginning of the school year is an extremely important time when teachers and students make a strong, caring connection. Ample research shows that students are more successful. Pullouts early in the year make forging that crucial connection more challenging. I want to be clear. I'm a teacher to be here for students, and I'm frustrated when the district priorities clash with what I consider best for students. I ask for respect and a reasonable raise. I believe my colleagues and I deserve both. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karen Fremantle. I teach 4th grade at Rancho School. If you know me, you know I love my job most of the time. If you know me, you know that I will do, ask, beg, borrow, maybe I shouldn't say steal, but borrow, just about anything that I think that my kids need. I believe that you know that we should be paid more. I believe that you believe in our worth. I believe that you have the best of intentions when making decisions for our kids in Novato. I also believe that we need you to hear us, not just listen, but hear what we are saying before it's too late, Because unfortunately, there are many of us who really and truly are looking at you and saying, we are drowning. And it is the most discouraging, disheartening way to feel about a job that I love. Please understand, it's not just about pay, it's about respect. It's about boundaries that feel crossed and people feeling used. It's about unrealistic, unspoken expectations that feel systematically enforced and leave the perceived inability to be able to speak up for ourselves. It's about lots of us waking up one day to see the reality of what we've been putting up with for a long, long time. It's not about the pay. Okay, maybe it is a little. It's about all of the ways that so many of us that give hours and hours of our own time because we love our job, because we love our kids, how we have become complicit to a system that has started to extend us in every way possible. Our time, our money, our energy, and our emotions. We frequently pay for it ourselves, create it ourselves, stay late to put on a function for our kids ourselves. We meet during our time. We work during our weekends. We are kind on a daily basis to people who yell, ignore, use obscenities towards us, lash out at us physically, and then we make sure that they pass the new standards. And we also need to be prepared in the event of a catastrophe to take a bullet for these same kids. These things are not always even said as much as they're collectively understood. You'll see teachers who are ill, surrounded by her colleagues trying to support them on their way to their classrooms to wrangle their kids because it's easier than trying to write plans and trying to keep some of our kids with special needs moving forward. We've witnessed teachers who are injured who still come to work. We've witnessed teachers who are yelled at, demeaned, and criticized, and then go chase down that same kid to make sure they're okay. We just need you to hear us. Thank you.
All right, that concludes our non-agenda public comment, and I'm looking at our agenda, and we had an hour for non-agenda public comment, so I'm seeing discussion action starting at 8:30. Do we have all of our principals here this?
We have some of them.
Yeah, we do have some, I know, but are
We have
they?
half of them here.
Okay. And I apologize for the timing, but in the last few meetings, we've had quite a bit of a lengthy non-agenda public comment, and that's what we planned for probably this evening, and I didn't pay attention enough to that to question that. So we're going to go ahead and get started with who's here. And so this is our elementary single plans for student achievement. This is something we do every year. And we split it up with our elementary one evening and our middle school and high schools the next board meeting. And Jen Larson's going to kick it off for us.
Oh, no, but you guys will.
You have some, yeah, our student board members, you're welcome to stay and listen. It is the elementary schools, so, but I know the next time is going to be your high schools presenting there. It would be great if you guys could stay for that for sure. Okay, thanks for being here. All right.
Okay.
Handout coming down
Oh,
here.
yeah, I've got, and I'll explain why you have another handout coming down in just a moment. I want to thank you guys for being here tonight. This year, as the elementary team came together, the principals asked for us to consider some ways to focus. And as one of our goals this year, it's to bring some focus and really narrow down what it is that we're doing so we can spend the time on what's most important. So we changed the SPSA format for our elementary schools just a bit. The first is you're going to notice the goals that they have in their plans may be unique to their own school, hopefully unique to their own school, because what we wanted to do was figure out a way for them to align their SIPSA plans with the P3 work that they're already working on so that they don't have two separate plans that they're working towards. That way, all that wonderful data and all the observations and work the students and the teachers are invested in can be reflected in both of those documents throughout the year. The second was for us to come up and give an overview of the items that they are all working on so that they had time to spend in their 7 minutes up at the podium on just the things that are unique to their school or that their staffs are most focused on this year. So the two things that all of our schools in elementary are going to be working on together this year are LCAP Goal 1A. This is that the percentage of students who have met or exceeded the ELA standards as measured by CASP will increase by 5%. The form that I just handed out is the updated, now that our scores have been published and are public. You'll notice some differences between what you have in front of you versus what is in your board cover now that those are out. As you can see, we've made little bits of growth, but as always, we are all, as a district, looking for 5% growth moving forward. One item I'd love to just highlight that was a nice bit of news, or something I always appreciate seeing, is all of our students right around the 50% line. And then if you look at our reclassified students, also meeting right around that 50%. That's a good indicator that our rigorous LCAP, or pardon me, reclassification criteria is about where we want it to be, because once our students are being reclassified, they do have what they need in place to meet the same standard as the rest of the student body.
Can I just ask like a little bit off topic?
Yeah, absolutely.
The numbers, I know when they're not released, but you have access to them, and then when they get released, they're a little bit different.
They are.
Okay, and it's like 1 or 2.
It depends year to year.
But it can make a difference.
It can make a big difference. In some years, it's because of the statewide data. They'll throw out a number altogether, which changes the percentages. In others, it has to do with the number of students that we have enrolled at the time that they post them. So some of the big differences you'll see between like what I gave you before off of our Data Matters and this is Data Matters is in the moment. So that's the number of students that we have enrolled today, which is different than the students that they had enrolled when they posted. So that's some of that happens. When we do data on a regular basis here, we use Data Matters because it's the most up to date. Okay. But for something like this, I wanted you to have the public numbers. All right, so the strategy obviously is the adoption of Reader's Workshop. Every single student, or pardon me, teacher in the district got the units of study, the leveled libraries for those grade levels that have the phonics supplement ready. They have those. And of course the mascots for grades K and 1. For those of you who've been in those classrooms, you've seen those little lions and elephants. Professional development, you've heard quite a bit about. It is ongoing. It is year-long. They have personalized workshops, so that's a number of different workshops that meet the needs of each group of teachers. And then they also have in-class model lessons with coaching. That's by professional trainers and Amanda Davis, who is our instructional coach designated to our EL rollout. And then the second that the entire district is working towards is Goal 1G, which is the percentage of EL students that progress at least one level of LPAC or are reclassified by a minimum of 5%. And you can see we have grown, and this is one of the areas where we did meet our goal last year, and we hope to meet our goal a second time this year. We're going for 83%. If you look down below, there's a couple of numbers that may just be of interest to you. You can see that the number of English language learners is growing significantly. You can also see that the number of students that we are reclassifying has gone down a little bit, and we hope to see it go back up. Please keep in mind that on that 2017-18, we had a change in the test. We went from the CELT to the LPAC, so we did not test all students on either one of those things, which accounts for a little bit of that dip. And then finally is just to acknowledge that we have 266 long-term English learners, that is students in our district that have been an EL student for 6 or more years. And that's really where we're putting a lot of attention and work this year is in our middle and high schools around the reclassification. But on the other end of that, where we're seeing a lot of that early reclassification is in our elementary schools with the adoption of Clark Consulting. And again, that's another year-long ongoing professional development where they have workshops, but also real-time coaching. And as you've heard, that is very much in the moment in the classroom. And so it does feel like they are working towards one of these 2 goals almost on a daily basis. Again, they have materials for this, although they are methods, not necessarily curriculum, but they are methods to help the kids in accessing the content. And so those are the 2 pieces that all of our schools in elementary are working towards. And now I'm going to hand it over to them, and they can talk about what is special and wonderful about their schools, including some of these items. This is, yes, the 45-minute ELD instruction.
Yeah, okay. We're doing that.
We are
'Cause there was a
absolutely doing
questionable
that. We are working towards that, absolutely. The difference between this specifically and that is that we do 45 minutes a day, and now our elementary, like our middle and high schools have the support of Clark Consulting.
Yeah, okay. So who's up? Is Loma Verde up first? Tanya said she wanted to go first, so.
If I go by alphabetical last name or the name of school, I come up first, so.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah.
You have that copy at your front of your, okay.
My name's Tania Chima. I'm the principal of Loma Verde Elementary. Good evening. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share some of the wonderful things that are happening at Loma Verde. I do want to say this is amazing that we're running early. I don't think I've ever experienced that at a board meeting, so this is exciting. It's a lucky night. So I think you guys do have a copy of the presentation. So the first is just a, thank you, a glance at Loma Verde, just our population, not changing drastically in any direction, kind of holding consistent. And so these are our current numbers, but they reflect pretty closely where we were last year as well. So I'm very appreciative of this format that Jen's kind of highlighted all the things that we are doing as an elementary cohort. But I do want to share some of our successes. With our CASP data, we did have a significant growth in our ELA scores, especially in third grade. We went from 35% proficient or advanced to 55%, and then from 36% to 56%. Now, while we celebrate that, I do want to highlight that we're, again, not looking at cohorts. We are comparing two different groups of kids, but still the success is something to celebrate, and celebrate our teachers and our students. We did have a little bit of growth in math, but obviously we'd like to see that number higher. For our youth truth data, we had success in the area of relationships and culture, which is great because that's been a focus for us. 95% and 92% reported positive feedback from the parents. And for our EduSnap, we grew in the areas of metacognition, oral language development, and scaffolded learning. As we look forward, what are some of our challenges and our focuses? Our CASP data, as I mentioned, the fourth grade, there's a drop in math scores in fourth grade, and the fifth grade stayed the same. So we're really honing in on the domain of operations and algebraic thinking, and again, as highlighted by Jen, focusing on our English language development with universal access that's built into our daily schedule for each grade level, and really honing in on our English language learners and socioeconomically disadvantaged students. Our youth truth survey for communication and feedback, we had 76% positive feedback, which again is a great number, but we feel like we can improve and add to that. And then in EduSnap, one of our goals is to increase the amount of time that students are spending on reading comprehension, as well as small group instruction. Some of our highlights coming up, to improve our communication and feedback, we are hosting parent engagement nights in a very kind of thoughtful, methodical way. We've already had math nights for each grade level, standing room only in the library or multipurpose room. TKK literacy night was tonight. Wednesday, 1st and 5th grade is holding, so if any of you have time on Wednesday, and then 3rd grade is on Thursday, and including, lunch and learning events and inviting parents into the classroom in different ways as much as possible. Our other thing to highlight is using the equity walkthrough tool for our teachers to visit each other's classroom and give feedback about our equity goal to make sure that all our students are represented in the classroom. And we are doing a school-wide implementation of Second Step, and we've adopted these 3 general rules and expectations to be safe, be respectful, and be responsible, and to give our students and our teachers that common language that goes down from TK all the way to 5th grade. And we're, in these areas of focus, really highlighting the 6 C's for our staff, making sure that we're communicating, collaborating with our parents, that we're using our cultural competence lens, critical thinkers through our equity walkthroughs, and using second step, we're making sure that our students are conscientious learners and building character. So, among lots of great things happening at Loma Verde, those are some of our highlights, and I welcome you guys to come to our campus and experience some of the great atmosphere for yourself. Thank you.
All right, questions from the board regarding Trustee Miller?
Simple question.
Yeah.
When I visited Sinaloa and San Marin, there was a lot of conversation in the math department about having math students write problems, be able to read and write mathematics in English as well as in mathematic symbols. And there was the other side in the language classes, they were writing about more technical things. Have you had a similar blending of using different class time to blend the topic so you see the topic through more than one lens?
Yeah, I mean, elementary school structure is very integrated in itself, and so we don't necessarily have periods, but that's one of the ways that teachers are able to fit more things into the school day, or try to fit all the things into a school day. So to find time to write about science, and to find time to create word problems that involve, writing and critical thinking, to kind of integrate those curriculums.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Trustee Aguila.
Thank you. I know that Loma Verde is very wise in, you guys are using a system to have better communication and to listen to student voice. When I went to Loma Verde, you talked about the assembly and building relationships with your students. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. We actually have a community meeting. Loma Verde in Motion is still going strong, 4 days a week. We have that. That's the way we start our day. On Tuesdays, we actually start with a community meeting where students get to present. We have our character words that come up. Student leadership will do an activity. We do a chant together. We do the Loma Verde Pledge together. And so that's a way that we're building that common language, giving the same message at the same time, and building that self-efficacy where they hear I am messages and always have a positive adjective that ends that I am, and getting students to think in that way, like how are you going to be present at school today? What is your best self, and how are you presenting that, and how are you bringing that to school? As I'm visiting classrooms, having kids, say, I'll go in and say, tell me who you are today. And, getting them to, 4th and 5th graders are pretty adept at that. The younger kids have a little bit of a difficult time, but, being able to say, I'm a focused learner today, or I'm empathetic today. That's a lot of what's being built in through the second step as well. And so we really want to give students that voice to show up as their best self. And I think that's reflected in our, youth truth surveys that show up for relationships and school culture.
Anybody else? No? Okay. I have one, just a clarification when you talk about small group instruction, and this goes for most of the plans that I read through. The challenge was small group, but is that regards to the amount of time or the quality of the group instruction, or what does that mean when you say that's a challenge?
So EduSnap gives us the amount of time. And so right now, at this point, our focus is just to increase that time. I think currently we are at... we are only at, an average of 32 minutes during the school day, which, when we talked as a staff, we know that that's not acceptable on a daily basis. And so how do we just find the time? I think the English language curriculum, the Readers Workshop is helping in that, in building that time in, and then Writers Workshop. And so just kind of making a very conscious effort to what are some obstacles and how can we address those obstacles so that we increase the time.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Lou Sutton's up next. And she's going to give us her presentation. It wasn't at the table yet, so here it comes.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, and I have written here Superintendent Hogaboom. So I have to replace that on the spot. Are you timing? Did you press start? Okay. And Chris Koska, hi. I'm Jennifer Dudley, proud principal of Lou Sutton Elementary School. Go Cheetahs. Woo, that is right. So over the past many years, Lou Sutton has created a strong school environment, one that has a foundation in social emotional development, relationships, a sense of belonging, and joyful learning, all for the purpose of reaching academic growth. The Youth Truth results that we received at the end of last school year are a reflection of all of the work we have put into creating this powerful learning environment. In 5 out of 6 categories, our results were not only above the norms, national norms, but they were also the highest in the district. Our steadfast dedication to social emotional learning and a caring culture has also resulted in much academic achievement, which is demonstrated in our most recent CASP scores. So you'll see here, when we reviewed the percentage of students meeting or exceeding standards for CASP, we looked at both cohort and within grade level scores. What we saw was that in ELA, all subgroups made gains. And in math, both English learners and economically disadvantaged students made gains. Our focus areas of reading comprehension and concepts and procedures, those were goals that we had set for ourselves last year. We also made gains in those areas too. Our next steps, as shown in Youth Truth, are to further our work around establishing strong relationships between staff and students and families. And as demonstrated in our CASP results, we still need to work on reading comprehension and concepts and procedures, because even though this was an area of growth for us, it's still one of our most challenging areas, or both of those are our most challenging areas. So this year, we're maintaining that our academic goals are going to be to continue our work around reading comprehension, specifically with vocabulary development. And we're also going to deepen our practices in concepts and procedures by utilizing carefully planned questioning strategies that support students with the math practices. The ways in which we are working on our goals this year includes the use of all 6 of our now district rubrics for the 6 C's, for the graduate profile, also student-led conferences, extensive Lucy Calkins training, which we're so grateful for, as well as other readers' workshop trainings. Site committees, this part I'm really excited by because it's an example of the distributed leadership that we have implemented at our site. Our site committees are facilitated by teacher leaders, and these are where committees are continuously monitoring progress throughout the year on our work towards all of our school goals. Also, as Jen Larson mentioned, Kevin Clark, ELD training, planning, and coaching, and progress monitoring through both summative and formative assessments, especially with the use of our new database, Data Matters, which we're really excited about. It's amazing. So as I described before, woven throughout all of this academic work comes the foundation of our school culture, where every child and family has a strong sense of belonging and where children have powerful and plentiful experiences that develop their independence. That is the key to their success. So to end, I want to extend much gratitude for the time that you've given us to share both all the schools' work, but also because I learn every time I'm listening to every school, but also Lou Sutton's powerful work and more importantly, that you're supporting this work. Thank you.
All right. Comments, questions from the board for Lou Sutton? Trustee Millerick?
I'm curious that your use of, and your specific mention of Data Matters, your database, how, has that been an improvement year over year, or help me, why is it valuable to you? How are you making it valuable to your team?
So previously, we would be able to access different measures, academic or assessment measures, in separate places. And now it's all come together in one place. So we're able to look at both school-wide, grade level, and individual student results with multiple measures being represented. So we could see a better picture for a student, for example, not just how they're doing on CAS, but how they might be doing across multiple measures to include the MARS tasks, as well as their LPAC results, as well as MAP results. So we're able to see, oh, maybe that was a glitch with one assessment, but they're doing really well in others, or they're continuously struggling in this area, and so we need to provide interventions. So it's a super awesome tool to provide us with reflection and be able to see where we need to provide extra support.
Is your data team part of that school committee? Is one of your committees?
Yep,
is your,
that is.
And how many people are on that?
We just had one person add, so there are now 2, 3, 4, 5 of us.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, good for you.
Yes.
And congratulations on your scores.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've made some great growth in very specific areas that it's needed, and shows very well. So, good job.
Thank you.
Anything else? No? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm thrilled to see tools that we spend money on get used and make students' lives better. Yeah.
You're going to go in front of Olive? Oh my gosh.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
No, you're there. Mary said she wanted to stay longer. And let me just make a comment about the time. I know Chris has him on everybody on a time constraint, but we are here to, don't worry about the time. We've got oodles of time, and this is the one time you get to come and speak. We get to actually interact with you guys, so unless we go to the school site. Yeah, this is an extremely important topic.
Okay. So, good evening. I am Dana Sedan, the principal of Pleasant Valley, and I'm here to present a bit about our single plan and answer some questions. This first slide is similar to the one that we had on our slide last year, where it just sort of gives some of our demographics. This year we have 447 TK through 5th grade students. We only have 10 English language learners this year. That is in part because we reclassified quite a few last year, and also 5 5th graders did move on to elementary school, to Sinaloa. So, but 10 ELs, that's a really small number. We have 62 Hispanic Latino students, which is also fewer than last year, and 35 socioeconomically disadvantaged, which also is a decrease, and 43 special ed students, which is about the same as last year. So, but overall, we are experiencing a slight decline in enrollment by about 16 students is the difference from last year. So I did mine a little bit differently, so I wanted to talk a bit about some of our strengths. We did see an increase in our overall ELA CASP scores, at 71% overall. This year we have the full implementation of Lucy Calkin's reading and writing workshops, and we're really, really excited about all that training. Although we had been implementing it beforehand, we hadn't had any of the training, so now we actually are really enjoying all of those benefits of that. The other thing that we're doing, it's our second year of universal access, so we have 45 minutes of instructional time where there's no new instruction happening, so we can meet the needs of our ELD students for ELD. And because we have only 10 students, that is actually really, really important because they're at all different grade levels. So if a teacher had to stop the class and teach 45 minutes, just in her classroom, that wouldn't work. But we have an academic specialist who provides that CCT instruction. But we also have special ed going on, counseling, speech pathology, all of those things. And what we really want to look at this year is how we are using that universal access time in classrooms. So even though some kids are pulled, what are we doing in classrooms? We want to be sure that it is being used effectively, doing more small group instruction. It's an opportunity to provide instruction at specific needs that kids need at that time. And that's one thing that when we're looking at our test scores, there are two things that were different last year. One was that we implemented universal access, and the other was that we had so much professional development going on and teachers were outside of classroom a lot. So we want to look at how effectively we're using that universal access time. So hopefully that will make a difference in what our scores are. The other strength that we have, I think, is the PV community itself. We have very engaged teachers who are committed to doing a good job with students. They're very positive and professional. We have a very involved parent group, whether it's our PTA, who make all of our programs possible. My budget is quite small, so they provide all of the extras that we can do. We also have a really robust school site council, very, very involved parents this year and last year, and we've been bringing lots of people to speak at our school site council, and they've come up with a lot of great ideas. They've been very much involved in the Youth Truth Survey and things that we can implement this year. So that's really powerful. And the other thing is our students. I am very, very proud of our students. They are engaged and compassionate, and they're learning how to be leaders. Jen Larson shared with me, we've been doing Soul Shop for a long time, where kids learn to walk the peace path and how to resolve conflict. So Jen shared with me that at Sinaloa, there was an incident with a bunch of kids, and Jim Larson went over to see what the problem was, and there were some PV kids who said, "That's okay, Mr. Larson, we've got it, we're walking the peace path." So they were resolving the conflict, which I think is just phenomenal. The other thing that we have that I think is great is EduSnap. It's a really amazing tool that really helps us reflect on every student's experience in the classroom. And that, I feel, is going to be a really powerful thing in changing our practice. So let's see. So it provides that well-balanced program. So we have quite a few challenges, but this, I feel, is the biggest one, is math. But some of the areas of challenge on top of math are the academic achievement of our EL and socioeconomically disadvantaged students. We have made some small gains, but not enough. It's these small numbers, we should be able to move them more. I also view the number of initiatives that we have currently going on, that's also a challenge, in how we can remain focused and implementing those initiatives in an effective way. And then the other one is the need to improve our homeschool communication. That's something that did come up on our EduSnap. But for me personally, this is our biggest challenge this year. We are so fortunate that we now have a balanced language arts program. We've been so focused on language arts for the past couple of years. Now we need to have this balanced math program. We've been relying solely on math expressions, and that alone is not going to do the job. So we have 2 staff meetings a month. The first staff meeting is going to be about equity, social emotional stuff, culture of caring, the first school stuff that we're doing at the P3 work, and the second one is on content and data. So really, really driving home the math stuff. So, for example, tomorrow we have Kath Nam coming in, and Alex Perez as well coming with the Data Matters. We're going to do deep dives with that, and then really look at the NUSD Teach, all of the things that are in there and how we can implement more of those things. Okay, is it time? The other thing that we're doing at PV this year is we are not going to be using map testing for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, and instead we're doing the interim CASP. So, and Hamilton is doing the block assessments. We're actually doing the comprehensives. So they've actually started those today. They are overwhelming, but we're very excited about that because it aligns so much better than the MAP scores, and it will really help direct our instruction. And the other thing we're using a lot are the MARS. So we'll use the IEABs in between more as formative assessments as well as the MARS tasks. So that's that. Some of the highlights. So these are actually the things that I view as our successes and things to celebrate. We worked very, very hard over the past couple of years to develop a comprehensive behavior expectation plan that we can all agree upon. We had many suspensions, and we didn't want to have so many suspensions, and we had to come to agreements around what we could expect kids to do. So we've had Soul Shop for a number of years. We're continuing with that. We have the counselors. The other thing that we've been doing is restorative practices. I've been very fortunate to have Phoebe Smith come, and she's been leading staff meetings. She also facilitates circles. She's modeled for teachers how to do circles. So that's one of our commitments this year, is that everybody will do a community circle at least 3 times a week. I have teachers doing them every day, and that really helps to develop that culture of caring. It's a check-in for kids to see where they are, and you can help them out, and it helps to resolve all kinds of conflicts. We are also a Do Good, Be Kind school. There you see we're all in our Do Good, Be Kind t-shirts, and that do good, be kind, if you just ask kids, so are you doing good? Are you being kind? It's so clear for them. It's been so, so helpful. We have seen already a decline or decrease in the number of referrals to the office with all of these things in place, which we're very excited about, and kids learning how to control their emotions and resolve conflict. So there's that. And then we're also really excited to continue our work with Nancy Dome. This year, because we have different demographics than the rest of Novato, along with San Ramon, we are actually looking at how our whiteness impacts education, and how we can, so how do we promote students who are culturally proficient with all of that whiteness. So we had a first training on Friday with Kelly, and that was really, really fascinating and very well received. So we're very happy to be participating in the P3, and we're very grateful to have all of the Lucy Calkins workshop training as well. So that's that.
Thank you. Trustee Miller?
I'm curious, at some point, I'd love to talk to you about the issue of how do you create culturally adept citizens, even though your campus represents a particular segment of the society, because those kids are all going to come to work in San Francisco or in the world, and the world is different than what their elementary school is showing. And I'm really interested in that exercise, because it's we all carry bias, and how you figure out a way to address it without it sort of being right in your face the day you walk on the campus. I'd love the opportunity.
Do you know what? One of the things is that you have to self-reflect. You start from the inside out, and then you become aware of the times that you are, the microaggressions that you might be doing, or the biased things that you might be doing, and then you have to. So it's recognizing it, it's interrupting it, and it's redoing it. Okay, so it's that. But then in terms of kids,
in a way appropriate for a young child to understand.
Exactly. And it's not so much stopping the conversation and saying, I don't approve of that, but it's really opening up opportunities for conversation and hearing what people have to say. So we're all learning. This is new for us, but it's been really, really fascinating. The other thing that we've noticed is, we've done Colonial Williamsburg for a long time at PV. But, so looking at Colonial Williamsburg, so Colonial Williamsburg was built on the backs of slaves, and that was kind of a revelation for my teachers when I pointed that out to them. And so 50% of Williamsburg was slaves, and it was never represented. So they're looking at what they're teaching and how they can provide different perspectives different from different perspectives.
So did your school take field trips to Williamsburg? Have you ever done that in the past, or I don't remember?
The teachers have gone there so that they can do it, but not the kids. We have a handful of kids who go back east with Amanda Davis every year. So they go to Colonial Williamsburg, but also Washington.
But not the whole campus. There's just not the funds for that kind of opportunity.
No, unfortunately. We'd love to do that. That would be
me
good.
Thank you for
Thank you.
Anybody else? No? I'm just looking at this last slide and thinking of all the site plans that we've sat through. This is more and more defined, the social emotional, more so than ever. 5 years ago, we would have never had, neither of you would have had this slide in your presentation, I don't think. So it just speaks to how important.
It's the foundation.
It's a foundation.
It's absolutely the foundation. So you have to have that in order to be able to do the learning.
And you guys are doing great work in that PVS and
you.
all of trying to grasp that portion of the education. It's not just the academic.
Right.
Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Olive. We have Mary Pritchard, who's filling in over at Olive for us. Thank you very much. And I know Nancy New was over there for a little bit. And
What a treat, Mary. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was
now don't start doing San Ramon's. This is Olive.
No, I know. Or slip in
Sinaloa.
I had to laugh. I've actually been to almost all the schools since I've retired.
Yeah, you've been.
I've spent over 30 years in Nevada and had an absolutely wonderful career. When I retired in June of 2015, I knew that I was going to sorely miss so much, especially relationships, friendships that had developed, staff, students, the community, the school, the energy that goes on at a school. I knew I would miss all that. I also knew that there were many things I was not going to miss. I can guarantee you, school plans and the presentation were right up at the top of that list, and here I am again tonight. And especially when I saw the agenda and it said 8:30, I said 8:30. This is the person who was home watching Bull half an hour ago, and then all of a sudden here I am.
So before Mary gets too far into this presentation, she told me before the school year started she needed me to call on her more and have her work more. So, ask and you shall receive. But with it comes the school plan.
I know. All the other things have been more fun. I've kind of been able to sashay in and out.
Work on this at all? Did you do all of this in your team?
No, I'll let you know what I did here. Just, yeah. So I'm going to make up
Grace
time.
Howell.
I do want to say something about Olive. The Olive staff is strong, they're resilient, they're flexible, and most of all, they're compassionate. And the Olive parent community is present, they're involved, and they're strong. Elizabeth, first of all, everyone has shown heartfelt support for Elizabeth. Everyone has shown support to me as the interim, and everyone showed support for the interim's interim, Nancy New, when I wasn't able to be there. This year's school plan was written by Elizabeth while she was on her personal leave, and that's just simply because that's who Elizabeth is. We met together, I brought it to Site Council, it was reviewed, revised, I brought it to staff, reviewed, revised to Site Council, and ELAC approved it. I don't believe I can do this plan full justice, because I don't have the knowledge, the background of Olive's previous plans, successes, challenges, and goals, but I'm going to share a very general plan, and the slides are very basic and simple. I don't have a lot of data. I didn't feel comfortable actually doing comparative data for you. You can look at it, and I know that Elizabeth would be happy to provide that for you at a later date. And I'm hoping that when Debbie says, are there questions, you'll say, how's retirement? That's about it. Okay. Thanks. So in picking strengths and challenges and highlights, I actually looked at what I have seen, looked at what I read, looked at what I've heard from the staff. And so it's a little bit different than what the other principals have presented. First of all, what I see is a tremendous number of intervention opportunities that they keep trying to implement at Olive. They have a 60% intervention teacher, and through the analysis of the data from MAP and CASP, groups are formed to provide foundational reading skills using SIPs and leveled readers. They're fluid groups, and they change based on further analysis of data as it comes up and on an ongoing basis. They have before and after school math intervention classes. The students are identified using MAP and teacher recommendations. And I'm going to bring up something that probably isn't talked about a lot, but the student study team at Olive is a really vibrant group of people, and they work well. They use the SST online. The teachers bring the recommendations. The parents are there. The staff is involved. The teachers then go back after recommendations and a plan is made, and they give progress updates, and then within 6 weeks they have another visit. And I think this is one of the strongest interventions a school can use, because it reaches any and all of the needs of students, whether it be academic or the social emotional, which is a huge piece in my philosophy of education. Equity work. I have been listening, and I wish I had been a part of the National Equity Project. That all began as I retired. But the equity work going on is quite amazing, and Olive is such a wonderfully diverse school. The staff has fully embraced the equity work. They're doing the partner walkthroughs, the equity walkthroughs, and they're dedicating a lot of time to this at the staff meetings as well as with one another in their smaller group meetings. And then the social emotional learning, I actually consider that a strength. I too believe that it is absolutely the foundation. Without social and emotional health, there's not going to be academic achievement. Children have to feel safe and feel safe social and emotionally. This connects to the equity work, which ties to strong sense of community and providing a healthy learning environment. The staff uses Second Steps, which provides the monthly themes. This year we also brought the Do Good, Be Kind campaign, which offers constant opportunities to highlight acts of kindness. And it is such a simple, easy thing to ask kids. Are you doing good? Are you being kind? Challenges. And I'm being real honest with these challenges too. It may not be what Elizabeth would have chosen, but oh well. First of all, entry into the P358 grant. What an amazing grant. Wonderful work. But it's right now a little bit of a game of catch up, because Olive just entered last year, as other schools did. Some schools have been in the process of using this for quite a long time. So they have been creating their teams. They have an amazing facilitator, Emma Donovan, and she's doing wonderful work with the staff, and they're really moving along and working hard. I honestly find a challenge to be the implementation of all the new initiatives and the implementation with integrity and authenticity, and truly, deeply, and in the best way possible to implement the new programs. They're great programs, but it's difficult to implement a new program, especially something that is such a challenge and a change like Lucy Calkins. It's even more difficult when you're trying to do multiple new programs. You have Lucy Calkins, you have Kevin Clark, you have the First School, lots of things. And so I consider that actual challenge. Teachers are up for it, they're working really hard to do it. And then there's the analysis and determination of next steps on improving our scores. I know that time, thought, effort, analyzing, strategizing, and implementing in order to increase academic achievement was met with mixed results this year when you look at the scores. I know that it was met with a heavy heart by staff, the staff members who felt that they were so excited to hopefully see an increase. And there were mixed, there were some increases, but there was also some declines that they now need to go back. They have to just circle right back, and they have to dig deeper and start to tweak and move and see what direction they can go in. I just highlighted each of our goals real quickly. Balanced literacy, that includes analysis of the running records, dedicated time to ELD using the CCT program, poetry in the classroom for enrichment. We don't want to forget those enrichment pieces, along with the support of other, like our English language learners. Also, the school-wide P3 English Language Arts goal this year is the read alouds. And they're doing that with consistency, using it throughout all the grades, so they're all following the same plan. Goal 2 is metacognition. They're starting with analyzing the Mars tasks, breaking them down, trying to build math collaborative conversations, and trying to do more math discourse in the classroom. And yes, using language and writing of math problems, which we do see at the middle and high school. That has to happen all the way down, which is why reading's so important, because it all integrates. And then they're using the problem of the month, math problem of the month. Social and emotional learning, I've already spoken to the importance of it. I see it as a strength, and I see it as an ongoing goal. Equity walks, the second step, social emotional learning curriculum, and the community circles to discuss social issues. Equity discourse. This is the second year of implementation of the P358. I've already said that quite a few times. And they are all working diligently in their teams. They're also doing the buddy equity walks and the read-alouds together. The read-alouds, it's wonderful that the Lucy Calkin read-alouds tie so closely to diversity and equity in the classroom. Instructional rigor. The staff is continuing with the implementation of all the many initiatives. There's a P3, PBL, AVID, CCT, second step, focusing a lot of staff meeting time along with their own PLC time on reviewing and sharing practices. Stakeholder participation, they've now scheduled ELAC and PTA meetings adjacent to each other with the hope that we can have people, officers, be at each of those meetings. Also, we're using Constella, Shark Bites, and One Call to continue and increase the communication and find ways to pull in more parents in a more diverse way. And then community awareness, continuing with the San Francisco Marin Food Bank partnership, and continue with the family support through the community liaison. That's it.
Thank you. Trustee Millerick.
So the food banks running 1 day a week still on your campus. Wonderful. How is the faculty using the data resources that are available, the tools we've heard on from other campuses?
Well, I don't know a lot about it, but I know that Data Matters is also, Elizabeth spoke so highly of it. So that is what the teachers are seeing and using. They do have the data was gathered through Data Matters, and that's what they're using on the data.
I'll ask that question the next time I see her.
Good idea.
And thank you. You just got through telling me what a wonderful community Olive is, but you have raised your family. You have lived in this town from the beginning. Through your eyes, if you're seeing those values replicated in our schools, other campuses, that's the biggest validation, because I know that's where your heart is. And thank you for the observation and your service.
Thank you. Thank you.
Trustee Nell.
You mentioned what you call the student study group, and I just wanted you to elaborate a little bit more on the structure of that.
The student study team consists.
Student study group or student study team?
Student study team, SST. The student study team consists of administrator, general ed teachers, the classroom teacher for the student who has been referred, and the parents typically. Sometimes some schools will also include their resource teacher, others not, because it is not a special ed referral body. And that's what it has been for so often. It has been, I'm going to go to SST because I want my child to be assessed. Or a teacher, I want this child assessed, so I'm going to go to student study team. It is more to really look at what's going on for the child, really get a lot of background, and then start by creating plans and implementing interventions just within the classroom, and then maybe adding them to some of the intervention classes. And then that is revisited within 6 weeks or so, and then they tweak the plans and see what's next.
All right, thank you.
Trustee Mack and then Trustee Aguila.
Thanks for putting this together. Thanks for volunteering. Well, not volunteering, but stepping in. Appreciate it. But yeah. Right. But anyway. But I want to say thanks for your candor up front about because we heard it before the meeting as well. I'm not sure if you're here, but about the load, the workload.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's not lost on us. But getting it from an administrator's perspective, any suggestions? Spread it out. What do you think? I mean, you have the benefit of being here a long time. You've seen it all. What do you think? How would you attack it?
It's kind of hard when it's.
Well,
already all
you know
out
what?
there.
It
Am I gonna-
just.
am I,
Yeah, I don't want to put you on the spot too much.
My foot
yeah,
in
yeah,
my mouth
yeah,
yet?
yeah.
I don't know that there's a right answer because I think each program has value. Okay, so I want to say that up front. It's really excellent. I do think sometimes taking one thing at a time,
Right.
and getting a grasp on it at least,
Mm-hmm.
and then bringing in another one that more naturally fits into the first one that you start with, and then expanding on it from there. But it's hard to do because sometimes all these things come piling on all at once.
And that's just the programs, would you say, that are kind of, how do I put this? He's not there. Our technology, we're upgrading technology a lot. Is that kind of adding to the weight as well?
I haven't heard that at all.
Okay. Okay, that's good. And then the data, in terms of the data programs and all that kind of stuff, that's all good
Well,
news, right?
I think it's teachers getting used to knowing that is how you are moving forward. You're moving forward through data analysis.
Right.
It's not just what I think I want to do today, but really delving into that data and seeing what it means.
Right. No, it's good feedback. Thank you.
Yeah.
It just helps.
I'm glad you asked that. I'm glad you asked that because I was curious and I didn't know how to approach it. No, it's perfect. Thank you. Because I yeah. Trustee Aguila?
Yeah, you talked about buddy equity walks. Can you talk
The
more
equity
about that?
walks with the equity checklist. I don't know the exact official name. Is that
Learning walk?
Yeah, it's what's provided. They have rather than do like by grade level, they're doing cross grade level walkthroughs. So you may have a kindergarten teacher and a fourth grade teacher and a second grade teacher and a first grade teacher, and they're doing the walkthroughs together and giving feedback. I got to be a part of the staff meeting where we did a practice run through. We were all in the kindergarten classroom, and we all had our checklist, and we all went around and did it, and then we talked about it afterwards. And that's what they're doing with a buddy, and now they can compare how they can change and make it a more equitable classroom.
Great. So I'm really proud. I mean, you guys have all stepped up as staff and taken over, and you've been able to focus on the kids and making sure that they are learning, and you're looking at the social emotional learning part of it and seeing how adapting the do good, be kind. Thank you, Rancho School, for starting that. And you piloted. And great. So I think, and now with the air conditioning coming up, I'm hoping that we're heading the right direction.
Thank you.
Okay, and I just
Before
yeah. Let me just say one more thing, Chris.
Yeah,
Hold on.
of course.
I appreciate your honesty in regards to the CAS scores. They were alarming, and it's a concern.
I think they were to everybody.
Yeah. And I know there's great work happening there, and there's other assessments to look at. Unfortunately, this is the one that a lot of people look at.
I know.
And it shows who you are, but there's more to Olive than just.
A lot more, exactly.
So I know the board is going to get a CASP report at some point, and so we'll be able to go a little bit deeper with that. I know just looking at the overall number, all students, we need to go a little bit deeper and look at the subgroups. So, but thank you for your honesty. It's important. So. Chris has a comment he wants to make.
So before Mary sits down, we had a situation that came up at Olive, and we needed to find the right person to step in and fill in for Elizabeth while she dealt with some things. And we didn't have a lot of time to make the decision, but we went through our sort of mental Rolodex about who's the right person to come in and help Olive and Elizabeth through this difficult time. And Mary wasn't the first name to come to mind, but as soon as Mary did come to mind, it was the stopping point. It was like, no, maybe this person. How about Mary Pritchard? And that was it. And, we called Mary, and she was gracious to step in and help us out in spite of of her own challenges during that time. But she found a way to make it work because of her commitment to this town, because of her commitment to this district, and because of her commitment to Elizabeth. And I just really appreciate that you've gone above and beyond to take care of Olive and Elizabeth, and I just thank you so much.
It's been my joy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I just say, could you please send her our best wishes and condolences.
Coming back part-time next week. We're kind of doing a little bit of tag team for a couple of weeks, and then she'll be back the 1st of November.
We'll find a way to pull you back in.
Thank you.
All right, so we have Rancho is up next.
Good evening. I am here to share with you the summary of our single plan for student achievement at Rancho and some of the strengths that we have. It was hard to pick just a couple to highlight, so I'm going to share some of the highlights even just from this page. But looking at the CASP, district-wide ELA was definitely a strength, and I think that shows the collaboration of our teacher cohorts district-wide, and the programs that they're designing for all students in our district. At Rancho, we were proud to see the 5% goal that we had set in 2017 achieved by both our third graders who are now fourth graders and our fourth graders who are now fifth graders. They both achieved that goal, as well as a couple of our subgroups. When we look at our socioeconomically disadvantaged students who are now fifth graders, that cohort made 5% growth, and our reclassified fluent English learners. So that's a really rigorous program, and we want to be very intentional in that process to make sure that we're not reclassifying. But when we see that those students who we have reclassified are continuing to make strong growth, it's evident that our programs are serving all students. When we look at the EduSnap data, we were really pleased to see that we were above the goals that were set for both literacy and math in the amount of instructional minutes that are allocated in those areas. And then our Aries discipline data went down significantly. It went significantly down in suspensions, in total discipline referrals to the office. And when we look at our first school progress, we're really focusing on our students that are male and students of color, and we saw decreases in both of those areas as well. Excuse me. Our areas of focus. In English language arts and in math, we see that we are really needing to put more concentrated efforts on our Hispanic and our Latino students. So we are going to be talking about that in our next highlights area, but we see that that is definitely still an area for us, moving forward with the equity imperative, not just with our teaching staff, but with our entire community, and really bringing that to fruition. We also looked at our EduSnap data, the areas that we wanted to focus on a little bit more thoroughly. And again, it was the Read To. So the Lucy Calkins Reading Workshop is really going to help us boost our efforts there, looking at our vocabulary and also the small group instruction that we're looking at district-wide at most of our schools. So in celebration of the highlights, we're going to continue to build on our strengths. And that first school, we worked with Sharon and Sam today here at the district office with the other schools that are participating in that work. And it was amazing. And the focus of today's dialogue was really centered around balanced instruction. And it's so important because now we have the data point for our teachers that are really highlighting for them what the day of their instruction looks like through a student's eyes. And that's the EduSnap data, and that's the quantity piece. And now with the multiple measures that we have, CASP, MAP, LPAC, our formative assessments that we're designing with Kelly Lavelle through the data team work, we really have some leverage in looking at the quantity and the quality of that instruction. It's great if we're exceeding the goal in the amount of time we're spending on something, but if that instruction is not effective, then we're kind of counterintuitively working against ourselves. So really being able to measure the effectiveness of the instruction and comparing how much time is being spent on that is really going to start giving us some data to get our momentum going in subsequent years. Our culture of caring It's a big one, that social emotional piece. The equity lens is not something we take on and off. It's not something we sometimes see things through or choose to see it through. It's who we are. It's the way we are. It's the way we do. And it's everything that we are about. It's who we are. Amy sent out a thing about discipline matrices today. We have our own discipline matrix that we designed a couple years ago at Rancho. And it gives really clear boundaries about what our expectations are and who's responsible for supporting when something does come up that needs some reactive response to it. We're really dynamic in creating some very proactive approaches and creative solutions that really address the motivations for behavior. We're very strengths focused. Last year in 2017, our certificated staff and our classified staff both participated in Strengths Finder. And as a student body, we had our students focus on the 7 Habits of Happy Kids, which is off Stephen Covey's work, and The Leader in Me. We also have student ambassadors in our upper grade classrooms, so it was exciting to hear that that was a highlight of your experience at the high school, Ross. This year, we did the Indigo survey with our certificate and our classified staff, and that was a really, really powerful experience to see the intricacies of why we communicate and how we interact with each other, and really value each other and where the strengths lie and where we compensate for each other's lacking areas, I guess, to better say it. But then this also year for student strengths assessment, we are participating with the P3 grant in doing the Devereaux Student Strengths Assessment. So that'll give us some good information about our student strengths and kind of move away from a deficit model. And to kind of conclude, we are participating in year 2 of CCT. So our teachers all got the foundational practices and PD last year, and this year they're moving to the co-planning and the side-by-side coaching models in the classroom that we're hoping to see that boost in our Hispanic and our Latino populations. So that's the overview for Rancho, and I'm ready for any questions.
Could you just talk about the side-by-side coaching in the classroom?
Yeah.
I've heard mixed reviews on that just across the board. Here when I'm.
It was a bumpy start. Having had year 1, I met with Bradley and Melissa at the end of last year, and we kind of came up with a model that was going to fit for us moving into year 2. And that sort of turned into a boggle at the beginning of the year. And it was like the gift that kept giving. The coaches kept showing up, and I was like, I don't know what to do with you yet because the teachers are still getting to know their kids. And so there was a lot of them just sort of wandering around our campus, trying to get a feel of our community and what the practices currently were so that they could then take that information and move our teachers forward with what programs we do have in place. But the teachers were pretty resilient. The start of this year was very overwhelming. I kept saying, I think I jinxed it, because I kept saying, this is the great start to the year. Everything's going so smooth. And then like September came like a wave and just crashed down on us. And we're just coming up to breathe. It's all good stuff. And that's what you heard the teachers say earlier is their profession is being respected in the fact that we are a learning institution and we always have room for growth. But it's really narrowing the focus of where those areas are so we can be doing that growth well. And that's really important. So what we did is we've decided we have a cycle, a group A and a group B. So group A co-plans and meets with the coach, and we have a release day where they rotate in and out. And then group B co-plans on a different day. And then the next rotation, they're coaching. So they're in the classroom practicing the skills that they've co-planned with the coach. And then we'll have another cycle of co-planning. The coach will come back, and they'll be in the classroom working with the teacher side by side.
That's a little bit what I've heard, that it's a little bit of a distraction in the classroom with the coach there and the teacher trying to implement what they've learned. And I don't know if you're hearing that a little bit.
The model is different than what our teachers are used to.
Okay.
So there is somebody, it's almost like they're right in your ear saying, okay, now do this.
Yeah.
Okay, now do that. And so it feels uncomfortable. Because it's awkward and you're in front of kids, and teachers for so long have been the experts, and it looks different, just as what our traditional idea of what instruction and practice and PD looks like and feels like. So it's a shift for sure for our teachers and for our students. And when you're trying to do the best job you can, you got somebody saying, do it like this, do it like that, do it like this.
The
it's hard.
outcome of this is a positive, obviously, and
Right.
just a matter of adapting, I think. But I
And
understand.
we're still collecting the data to see how
Everybody.
it's
Right.
how it's helping.
How it's helping, right? Okay. Thank you. Anybody? Trustee Miller?
There's 2 points you make on your strength slide. One is that you're meeting your achievement goals, which is, everybody likes data. It's a nice number. That's great. But on the other diagonal, you're talking about the reduction of the discipline issues, and you break it out by particular cohorts, so we can see how it's working. How are those two? I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's like they're connected. Is the better achievement for the Hispanic students cross-connected to the reduction in their discipline issues?
I would say yes, for sure. And I think it could be connected to the fact that students are in class more and they're less in the office or out of the classroom resolving conflict, because we know that achievement can't happen if students aren't in the classrooms benefiting from that instruction. So I would say that definitely the reduction in behavior is definitely going to see an increase in scores because students are capitalizing on the instruction, the amount of time that they're receiving instruction.
And I'm not on the campus. You're seeing this with your eyes. You, in fact, see it's not just a correlation, it's a causational relationship, in your opinion.
I do. Yeah, okay. I really do. And really making sure that we're being thoughtful and when those conversations that need to happen are happening, because sometimes it doesn't have to happen right after lunch recess. Maybe it doesn't have to happen during class time. We can be really thoughtful about the times that we're having those supports that are resolving the conflicts that we're having with students happen at different times.
So take the opportunity you have a conflict that needs resolution, find the best time and opportunity to get the most value for it, not just at the time it happens.
Correct.
Is that what you just?
Yeah, and usually it's a learning opportunity not for the students involved, but also for the entire class or for a group of students. And so it might be appropriate to then facilitate that through a classroom community meeting or, being thoughtful about maybe it's happening during universal access time when there's not that new instruction happening, and just being very intentional about the way students are experiencing their day and maximizing the time that they are receiving instruction.
Thank you very much.
Trustee Gila?
Yeah. And also, I think because I think the students are feeling safe, and when you create a safe environment like you have by doing things like being so brave and being the first principal to adopt the do good, be kind, you're able to, they feel safe. And so they're able to learn better, I believe. Is that true?
Yeah, I do. In the Youth Truth Survey, that's the student responses that's filled out by 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, I would say 85% of their responses to what do you like about your school was do good, be kind. And it was the kids are kind to each other, kids are kind to adults. That was their own words. And if I had 3 other slides and about 4 more minutes, I probably could have shared that information with you. But I'm glad you asked that question because as I was reading that, I'm not going to cry tonight, but I was crying when I was reading those results because I think here's something that's so important to us as adults. Children have so many poor models of adults in their lives that they see in many different arenas. And if we're not the leaders showing them how adults can be and should be, then we're failing them. And so we really have to make that a priority, and seeing the results of that and that they understand that and internalizing it was just so rewarding. It was a huge reward. Yeah.
Yes, and you were there. You cried also the first day that it got implemented.
I usually cry at everything.
Thank you. Thank you for being you.
So thank you
for crying.
Any other questions? Okay.
The areas of focus on the cohorts here. I just see this the English language arts and how it's kind of focused on likely English learners as well as SEDs. And I'm looking at the age group, and I just can't help but wonder, does that time in with kind of the conversion to a neighborhood school that when they came in?
This is actually our first year that we are fully neighborhood,
right,
K through 5. We have some siblings and some,
sure. Right. Well, which is also where I was going too. But I'm just wondering, it just kind of seems a time with, that's when they started, basically when the school was kind of making that conversion. So I'm wondering if this is a bit of a hangover.
It could be.
Okay.
And it's certainly been a focus as this transition has been happening, because we want to make sure that we're addressing the needs of all populations, which is one of the reasons why I also highlighted it in our strengths, because it's hard when you look at data and the teachers, you hear them talk, right? And they're all working at maximum capacity, the best job they know how to do. And when the data shows what we want it to show, and when we're surprised by the celebrations that we can have from it, it's great. But when you look at it and it doesn't tell you and reflect that hard work, it can be damaging, to our egos and our self-esteems. And so we can come up with a lot of reasons or excuses around it, but if we know what it's telling us and we know where we need to focus, then we can focus, and we can focus well.
Agree. It's not the definitive answer. It's just a little bit of color. It helps better understand it.
For sure.
But thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Our last one. Linwood's going to present at our next board meeting. That's why Linwood's not here.
I so appreciate year after year you save the best for last, right?
We do.
I mean,
yeah. So it should be all successes, no.
So thank you for having me. I'm Amanda Langford, the principal of San Ramon Elementary School, and excited to share with you some of our strengths, our challenges, and our highlights for the year. So first of all, looking at our strengths, we were very excited to get our CASP results, as at all of our schools in Novato, our teachers work really hard. So looking at ELA as a whole, third grade had an overall growth of 8%, fourth grade 1%, and fifth grade 11%. So a lot to celebrate there. As far as our math scores increased as well, in third grade, there was an 8% increase again and a 12% increase for math in fifth grade. Fourth grade as a whole, the cohort going from third grade to fourth grade had overall gains as well. So we were very excited to see all of that hard work paying off. Also looking at another aspect of our data was our EduSnap data, and something that San Ramon has been working on very intensively for the last few years is our balanced literacy program. And the evidence that we received from the EduSnap data looking at the student's day and a balanced educational experience. The minutes for both literacy and math mimicked, or mirrored, I should say, what the state expects students to be experiencing. So we were very proud to have really high amount of minutes in literacy, both in math, and then the other days as well, other parts of their day as well for exercise and social studies and science. We are very excited that we implemented what we call a school-wide learning center model, similar to the universal access that you heard about earlier today. So each grade level has 45 minutes, and students are able to go, we call it a learning center, they're able to go to where they need to learn at the time. And so it is a mix of going to their RSP, going to speech, going to intervention. We use our counselors to do social groups, and they're getting intensive mind-up practice. And it's also an opportunity for our SDC classes to be going into our general ed classes, because it's not new information being taught at the grade level, but time for them to have access to typical peers as well. And it's been going really well. And then our social emotional programs. So we started implementing Mind Up. This is officially year 2. And we have really a school-wide focus on meeting the needs of the whole child, and with the balance of using old school Maslow's hierarchy of needs and making sure the students are safe first and then meeting their physical needs and what else needs to follow. And we have created tiers of support for our school, and we're working on building that and very proud of that. So now there's always challenges and there's always room for growth. So first of all, in looking at our specific data, it was disappointing to see that our English language learners didn't make the growth that we were hoping. We did hire a teacher having 40 English language learners. We hired a teacher last year to really help with that intensive 45-minute ELD support. With it being year 0 and working on what that implementation looked like, we didn't exactly see the results that we hoped in our CASP test, but we have refined that for this year. We've extended her contract, and she is working more directly with the students 4 days a week now and working with the families as well. We did have some gains with our Latino academic achievement as well in the CASP, but again, it's still, we want to be able to enclose that gap more. So as you've heard earlier tonight, there are a lot of programs and a lot of things we're working on implementing, and there is a range. We are in years 0 for some programs, year 1 for programs, and year 2 for programs. And so it's always a challenge to balance what are the next steps when you're working on implementation and what are our strategies to focus on. So as a staff, it's really important that we look at data and we set goals, and we're constantly revisiting them throughout the year. But it does create somewhat of a balancing act at times. Mathematics for us, overall, we did have a little bit of a loss in 1 grade level, and we've had a strong focus on literacy, so we really want to create a balanced math program, again, as you heard from my colleagues earlier, and really look at that math discourse and how we can improve our math scores. So that's going to be an area of focus. Community awareness, our educational system has changed so much over approximately the last 6 years with CASP and just the social emotional learning component, and our graduate profile even here in Novato. And we are finding a sense of emergency now to really have our families and our community understand that education now is not like it was when we were all taught. And everywhere, again, from how the collaboration in the classrooms to the social emotional learning and how it's not a discipline-based or a punishment-based program anymore. And the graduate profile, what does that mean at the elementary level? It's really important communication for us this year. So then the highlights and looking at our school plan, we have 6 goals that we're focusing on. The first one is academic vocabulary. So using CASP data, MAP data, and our EduSnap data as well. It was an area starting all the way from kindergarten up through 5th grade where we do feel we need to be really strategic. And so we're working on a scope and sequence and target areas of a vertical plan for us from TK all the way through 5th grade as a staff. Again, mathematics, differentiation, and intervention. And so a lot of this has to do with some of our groups of students. Like I mentioned before, English language learners and our Latino students are struggling more in math. And so not only are we looking at intervention for literacy, but how do we differentiate and create that discourse and provide intervention for math as well during that learning center time. With part of our P3 work, P5, P8 work, we are also reflecting on our equity lens and what our instructional materials look like, what our classrooms look like, and the content that we're actually using to ensure that students are being exposed to what America and the world really looks like, and also that students are reflected in the materials we're using. So we are doing the equity walks, and we're creating curriculum to ensure that those parts are looked at. So metacognition is one of the components of the EduSnap data, and it's really forcing students to think about their thinking. And again, it was one of the areas where our students in some grade levels did not spend as much time thinking about their thinking and finding evidence for their statements. And so as a school, we found it important to, it's a higher order thinking skill, to focus on this and how do we use these metacognition strategies in all of our lessons throughout the day. Reading and writing stamina. Why we've worked a lot on literacy throughout the few years. It's really important that kids have time to be reading independently and time to be writing. If they don't have that time designated, it's not going to increase their skills. And so we are creating a scope and sequence of what that looks like from K through 5 as well, and collecting data. And then last but not least, the social emotional community involvement. So it's really also including in ELAC meetings and PTAs in our community meetings. What is our social emotional curriculum? What does that vocabulary look like? What are those discussions and what are those target words that parents can have those communication and those conversations with their students? So that's our strengths, challenges, and school plan highlights as a whole. So thank you for having me. I welcome all of you to San Ramon anytime. And yes. It's slippery. They're there every night. They're working hard.
Trustee Aguila, do you have a comment?
Yeah, the roof okay or complete done? Ready?
Yeah, we had that rain a couple weeks ago. We had a couple bumps in the road, but got them fixed. And Mike Woolard has been fantastic with any questions and so forth. And so we're doing okay.
The taxpayers should be happy?
They absolutely. It
Great.
looks fantastic. We just got some of the final pieces that we need, and yeah, good stuff. Yeah.
Trustee Mack.
Back to the challenges, and I really appreciate you guys saying this in your different ways. I've heard it 3 times now, that there's a lot of programs going on. And I really appreciate how you kind of laid it out. You know, you have some that are year 2, some are year 1, some are year 0, and I can appreciate that. I guess there's no uniform answer, but I'll just throw the question anyway. How many years you think you normally might need to get a program kind of rolling before you might want to layer another one on top of it? But I'm sure it depends on the program. But
yeah, my mindset more or less is just in order to look at some trends in data, you kind of need 3 years to have something implemented. And so that's where that year 0, looking at, year 0, you're treading water and just trying to figure out what it looks like. But year 1, you've learned from living it the year past, and year 2, you can make big changes. So really it's looking at 3 years of a program. And again, we're like, for example, in our social emotional program, we're in year 2. So we're making the big changes now, like what has worked, what has not worked. And so next year's data will be really interesting, our youth truth data, to look at, how that reflects and so forth. But I really feel like 3 years is important.
right, so by the time year 3 hits, it's kind of integrated. It's part of what you do, and then now it's time to. I think it was Angela said we're always learning, including
Absolutely.
us.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to add that to it because I was going to bring that up. In your staff success goal number 2, you really highlight the challenge. And you state it more so than others have stated it, but some of you have alluded to the challenge of the multiple professional development, the requirements that we're asking of everybody to do everything, and we heard it from 3 speakers tonight. So I think from our perspective as board members, I think it's not something we want to ignore. We've heard it, you've brought it up, Trustee Mack, and I just think we need to take a good hard look. At one point, we were hearing a few years ago that the professional development wasn't relevant. And so now we're making it relevant, but it's more. We are asking for more. We are trying out programs, and it does take a while. We have to remind ourselves that it takes time to see a program work. We can't be changing it all the time.
Right.
So I think we need to be aware of that, and I would just say to staff to maybe give us a little bit more information for board members on the professional development, that it's happening, what we're asking of teachers. So Jen and Amy, if you could give us some sort of feedback to the board, either in a weekly update or a professional development report, staff report to the board, I would really like to see that. And if the rest of the board members are okay with that?
Yes, and Mrs. Fremantle too. She left, so if you can spread the word too.
Oh.
One of the things that discussion that Jim started, another team that he started, was a Coherence Committee that I happen to be on with Jen and Amy as well. And so we are working with the different consultants and groups that we're working with and trying to ensure what the messages are. Amy actually just sent out a great questionnaire, I guess you would say, to get some feedback from them and really get some grounded information. But we're starting really good discussions with the different groups that we're working with. And I think it's really going to help from that leadership standpoint. It's the communication that we have for the teachers, the community, because it does work together. I mean, but there's no book and there's no, program that shows us how it all works together, but it is all stuff. And so those conversations are starting to happen. So I think we'll get some really good information with everyone meeting together.
Me personally, I need some clarity. I need to better understanding, and we want good outcomes. And when we pile things on, we're not going to have good outcomes. So I think if we can make some adjustments or provide some help in how to manage these different programs and how to move them forward and not be discouraged. I don't want our staff to be discouraged.
Right.
So they are making a difference in the classroom. So.
Absolutely.
Okay, Trustee Miller.
Two points or questions. You put mathematics in your strengths, school-wide increase in math scores, and you also put mathematics in your challenges.
Good point.
So just covering, obviously you're covering your bases. And then just to be sure, mathematics differentiation and intervention in one of the strategies. So how is the faculty receiving the focus on math? I mean, obviously you're thinking about it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, so for us specifically at San Ramon, when I started there a few years back, the data was very evident that our literacy scores, our ELA scores, should have been stronger. And so we have really focused on literacy for the past 3 years. So now we are seeing some very much higher scores in literacy. And then when you compare our overall percentages in literacy in the 60th percent, 60+% percentile of our kids are proficient or advanced, and then in math we're not quite there. And so even though we're seeing growth in math and some very substantial growth in some areas, now the percentage of our kids that are proficient and advanced is not as high as the amount of our students that are proficient and advanced in English language arts.
So you're seeing as opportunity, sort of.
Yeah, so we're doing really well with some things with literacy, and we're really fortunate to have all the training that we're getting at the district office now based on the workshop model. So as a school and as an administrator at my school specifically, I can back off a little bit on what I'm doing during staff meetings for literacy, and now we can have those specific discussions about mathematics and what that looks like for us.
One more question on your highlights. In the upper right-hand corner, you put metacognition. So you're teaching kids to think about their own education. The challenge is now they're going to come home and start asking me questions. So how does that? I think it's a great thing to have a self-awareness so you can start setting your own career goals early. I mean,
all the way to kindergarten.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is and it's one of the pieces. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did I?
It's okay. You're the one with the information. I'll listen. Thanks.
It's one of the pieces that the EduSnap data that they collect all the way from kindergarten all the way up to 5th grade is how much are students thinking about their thinking. And when we're going to the trainings with Marin Community Foundation and the First School team, it is one of the training pieces that we're working on and trainer of models for teachers to have that discussion of how are you teaching kids to think about their answers and think about their responses. So it is a higher order thinking skill, but it's one of the predictors of success is, how much kids can have that self-awareness and their own responsibility for learning.
Clearly in my professional world, the employees who have a plan to succeed in this. The employees who do not have a plan don't, or not, they don't succeed. They stay in the same role they're in, and the world seems to, they don't have opportunities that come their way because they didn't plan to create the opportunities. So I'm thrilled to see that, our young students are being helped to think like that. That's great. And it's systematic, which is even better than just, it's on the slide that it's in fact part of the training that our entire program is developed. Thanks.
Something teachers are really excited about. They really are. So it's exciting.
Oh, if I could get my students to self-educate, and then I could just sit back and drink coffee, that'd be...
Me too.
Yeah.
Trustee Nell and Trustee Mack.
I did appreciate your comment about thinking about their thinking, metacognition, and the relevance of that. We just happened to have a meeting today on HR recruiting, and we were discussing the results of the testing that we do, and we're really struggling trying to find individuals who can think why they're doing something as opposed to just carrying out functions with no idea how it relates to what came before or what comes after them. So
Interesting.
this is a very important thing, and it's one of the reasons I think we all stress critical thinking is one of our C's in our graduate profile, because somewhere along the line we may have missed a step in our public education system, and that's showing up in the workplace right now.
Very interesting.
So, but what I wanted to ask you about, on your strengths, not your strengths, on your challenges, you listed community awareness, and I felt like your community engagement page was sort of interesting. I want to understand this a little bit better. One of your challenges, traditional roles in schools have placed a stereotype that schools have a system set up to punish students for their behavior. Just could you elaborate a little bit more? And you sort of covered it really quickly on your presentation, but I'm trying to get an idea of what the goal is here, what you're recognizing, and what you're doing about that.
So, and this is some of the training that we're working on, again, with the Marine Community Foundation, and also I've been attending trauma-informed schools training and a school mental health training. And what's happened over the years is research is now showing that when students are in an environment that is based on punishments, it's a threatening environment versus an environment that is based on natural consequences or based on simply building relationships and learning from your mistakes. So look, again, the majority of our parents were, and this is a real big transition over the last about 6 to 7 years that this research has really come out, and we're re-looking at how schools deal with discipline and what the matrix of discipline looks like. And it's now built into our educational code from the state of California, even, that we can't jump to suspensions. They want to see that we've tried to make steps that kids can learn from their mistakes. So looking, though, at parents and looking at when we have conflicts in schools and things like that, sometimes, you have a first grader that pushes another first grader. It happens. And some parents say, well, what's his punishment? Is he going to get his recess taken away? Is he going to be suspended? Is he, and they expect that a punishment, kid loses these privileges and that's his punishment. When in reality, again, the research is now showing that recess is one of the most important parts of the student's day and them getting that activity. So why would we take away an important, because they're learning out on the yard. So instead of looking at punishments, but it's a big shift now at schools. We're just still finally starting to understand it and make those changes. And just like any other changes, now it's time for our community and our parents to really understand that elementary school, a huge part of it is just learning how to do school, learning how to function socially, and learning how to learn from your mistakes. So then we send them off to middle school and they're perfect, but but does that help a little bit? So, even from traditionally all of us would be sent to the principal's office, and it was like, I'm going to the principal's office, that's not even it anymore. Yes, it is, kind of the hierarchy, but at the same time, I can meet with a student in the morning to go, you're going to have a great day. And that's an intervention of having that relationship with that kid, meeting him at recess, giving him the high five, like, Jaden, how's your day going? I'm not the end all be all hierarchy person like it used to be either. And that's another piece to that systems piece.
No, I appreciate that. I really do. So Thank you for that explanation.
Thank you.
Trustee Mack?
And this is really just more of a general question. So, and really more to Amy and Jen. Obviously, I'm itching to see the district-wide scores broken out and really get into them. But when in seeing what I saw tonight, I'm kind of picking up some trends already. Some anecdotes. I'm generally seeing we seem to have a really fantastic third grade group. Their test scores are going through the roof on every campus. Maybe the fourth grade group too. Or what did we do when they came in and since then? So I'm looking forward to that. As well, I generally saw, and maybe I'm mistaken here, but generally just a decline in especially math scores from third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade. We just get lower and lower and lower. And maybe that's related to that, or maybe there's something that we're not doing that we were doing earlier. I don't know. That's where you guys are the experts. So I'm really looking forward to the numbers and kind of giving you a preview of what I'm looking for. And if you could kind of preempt me, that'd be great. But thank you.
Trustee Gila? Okay, you're good. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Is it just perfect for you? Jen, do you want to come back up? Yeah. This is a discussion action item, so we approve these every year. Can you just tell us what happens with the plans now? What are they? They go sit on a shelf?
Great question. To be honest with you, our goal is for them not to sit on a shelf. And that was one of the, I think, biggest things we heard this year was if we were to align them with their P3 work, they really would be a more workable document. And so you'll notice the thing that is really missing in the way this is formatted has been in the past, what is the evaluation and the update? And what they have in their data work through their P3 is that exact piece. So there's this ongoing inquiry cycle and data cycle so that they're coming back to those goals on a very regular basis. And so there's updates that happen throughout the year, and that's a big step forward because there's been some times when those do feel like a have to check off the list, but they sit on a shelf, and then we turn to the work that they're doing in their P3 grant. So hopefully that worked a little bit better, and they will be much more usable documents moving forward.
Does it go back to the site councils at all?
The site councils have already seen them, and they sign them off.
Will they see them again? Will they?
Oh, yeah, they go through, yes.
Periodic update throughout the year?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, as well as ELAC and
Yeah.
any of the other parent
Okay.
groups.
All right, this is a discussion action item to approve the single school plans for this year.
I make a motion that we approve the singles plan for this year.
For the schools presented.
Yeah, for the schools presented, yes. Second? All right, all in favor? 5-0, 2 absent. All right, thank you, principals.
Thank you
We
guys
really
very
appreciate it.
much.
And thank you for holding till the end to support your colleagues, so we appreciate that.
I know that.
All right, this meeting is wrapping up. Our next meeting is November 6th, and we are looking at moving that meeting to a 6 o'clock start for open session, a 5 o'clock start for closed session. We haven't, it's a tentatively scheduled at that time, and we have the secondary schools presenting that evening along with Linwood, their site plan. So this meeting is adjourned.
And remember to